Remembering the day no one will forget. 20 years on, the world unites to commemorate 9/11. Stories from the Aussies who were there that day as we're warned the war on terror is far from over. From the studio to court, fallen TV star Andrew O'Keefe in trouble again, accused of domestic violence and resisting arrest. What he had to say leaving police custody. Tony Abbott slams the snapper who earned him a COVID rule-breaking fine. And Sydney-siders pack the beaches as New South Wales hits another unwanted record. And Victoria facing another surge as Aussie researchers uncover a COVID cocktail that could stop the Delta strain.
This is 10 News First with Chris Barth.
20 years ago, Australians were off to bed and millions of Americans were starting a normal day when the world was changed irreparably by 19 hijackers in around 2 hours. The September 11 attacks claimed almost 3,000 lives and set off an international chain of events that's still being felt even now. These are live pictures of the 9/11 memorial in New York as the United States prepares to pay tribute to the victims of one of the darkest days in its history. And New York is where we'll begin our coverage with US correspondent Catherine Firkin.
Bells toll in America's capital 3 times, one for each location the terrorists struck on September 11, 2001.
We remember September 11th as if it were yesterday, and we remember every life lost.
Services were held in all 50 states. Fields were planted with just the right number of flags, 2,977, one star-spangled banner for every life lost.
We're trying to put the focus on the families and to really remember what they're going through to this day.
California firefighter Scott Townley has turned his front lawn into a tribute of its own. A heartfelt display of respect, handmade crosses to honour the first responders who gave their lives to save others.
We needed to do something on the West Coast for our East Coast brothers and sisters over there.
At New York's 9/11 memorial, hundreds gathered to pay their respects. For many, the pain still raw, the memories unbearable.
When the whole thing happened, I mean, it was like surreal, and it was just so upsetting.
Just to kind of pay tribute to fallen brothers and sisters. It's pretty emotional.
Each year, more than 6 million people visit the memorial here in New York, but on the day itself, it's all about the victims and their families. No one other than those directly affected are allowed to be in this site until late in the afternoon, giving those who've lost the most time and space to reflect. Katie Nolan is one of those who'll be there later tonight. She hasn't returned to New York since losing her dad, who worked at the World Trade Center.
That day, he was on the 97th floor, and when the towers hit, we knew instantly he was gone. They didn't find his body, so we don't have really a grave or anything that we can go to.
In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the eve of September 11 was marked with a solemn procession of lanterns for those on board Flight 93. And at the New York Stock Exchange, traders held a moment's silence. This year's anniversary is given even more significance. It will be the first without US troops in Afghanistan fighting the war the attacks started. But a heightened security presence throughout New York serves as a constant reminder. That war might be over, but the threat of terror is as present as ever.
And Catherine joins me live now. Catherine, services will begin there soon. What's the feeling been like in New York?
Yeah, Chris, we're a little over 5 hours away from the memorial services getting underway here in New York, and it is difficult for me to accurately describe the feeling being on the ground here. It is an incredibly sombre morning here in New York, almost a little bit eerie in many ways. New Yorkers are known for being strong. They pride themselves on their resilience, but this is an incredibly sad day for this city, and there's just simply no getting around that. In fact, I was walking around the memorial earlier today, and it felt like almost everywhere I turned there was someone who wanted to share their stories with me, to tell me about their personal connection to the events of that day. And that is something you really get being on the ground here, is just that better understanding of the sheer magnitude of this tragedy, how many people were affected and how many people will continue to be affected going forward. Having said that, Chris, there really is a sense that this 20th anniversary is a defining moment in this sad chapter, that September 11, 2001 will be something that is now taught as a history lesson in schools and not something that will continue to define this city or this nation as a whole. And I really do think those messages of moving forward, of healing and of unity are things that we're going to hear a lot more of over the next 24 hours.
Thanks, Catherine. Catherine Firkin joining us there live from New York. Millions of Australians vividly remember where they were watching it all play out on TV, but some saw it in real life, including Sydney businessman Ken Farrow. 2 decades on, in a lockdown world, Ken couldn't attend a memorial, but he shared the chilling story of his escape as the towers tumbled.
This morning, Ken Farrow took in the beautiful scenery at his local Sydney beach, a world away from where he was this time 20 years ago, on a business trip in the Big Apple. The day after 9/11, Ken bought this picture of the Twin Towers because he was one of the last to see them standing. His story begins on September 10, 2001, courtside watching Leighton Hewitt beat Pete Sampras in the US Open final.
Yeah, he's so quick.
And that was going to be the story of my life. Went to the US Open, but next day, it was not the story of my life.
Ken was in a meeting on the top floor of the Liberty building opposite the Twin Towers.
Just looking up at the Statue of Liberty, and there's a plane out there. I'm going, what's this plane doing? And it came closer until it became quite a big black dot that was just heading straight to my face. It banked in front of me. I saw the people, I saw their faces.
He then raced down the stairwell and ran for his life. As live pictures streamed across the world, his family had no idea if he'd survived.
This is the part that hurts and never goes away. Now I couldn't reach the family. There was no communication. I got no idea what they thought.
He eventually reached them, and the father of 3 and grandfather of 2 has never taken a day for granted since.
Happy to be here, honestly.
In years gone by, Aussie firefighters have climbed 83 stories to honour the NYC crews who died saving others.
Every firefighter internationally owes those 343 FDNY members a tremendous debt of gratitude, as do the public.
They entered a tower knowing they may never walk out. Bravery beyond measure, etched in the memories of those who saw it.
20 years later, still feels the same.
Natasha Exelby for 10 News First.
And for more on the events on that historic day 20 years ago, tune in to 10 News First's In the Shadow of the Towers straight after the news, and we'll have more special coverage a little later in the bulletin. Former TV star Andrew O'Keefe says he feels hard done by, claiming it's 2 strikes and you're out in this country after he was charged with domestic violence offences for a second time. As he walked out on bail after a night in the cells, the ex-game show host told 10 News First he intends to vigorously defend the charges against him.